Howdy, howdy! We are live on a Friday night for the first week in a while. Took a couple weeks off for the Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States, but it is finally December, which means we've reached the end of yet another year. We've survived another one, and we have a whole year of Star Trek to reflect back. And we have a friend, Brandi, here to talk about the Trek of 2023 with Dave and me. So should be a
Hey,
lot of
Brandi.
fun.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
And people are already chatting in the live audience, so we can go ahead and get the ball rolling, get the show started. I'm Fatheree,
This is Dave.
And I'm Brandi.
and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 268th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are talking about the Star Trek of 2023. We've reached the end of the year. It's December now. We've gotten all the Trek official Trek content, at least for like shows that we're getting. So it's all kind of just laid to rest, and we can all soak it all in, chew on it,
Kick back
finalize
in 10.
opinions.
We should kick back in 10 forward and reflect on it.
Yeah,
Or your 10 forward choice.
like the ship's holiday party. Or it was a Christmas party. It's the 1960s when they, it was before this war on Christmas began. It never really began. But yeah, when they had Christmas parties and the holiday parties. But yeah, the Enterprise had a Christmas party that was mentioned in Dagger of the Mind. So
Okay.
I guess Starship Texas has a similar party. But it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be festive. Brandi is here for the people watching on YouTube. Say that she has some festive Christmas swag on. So
I do this every year. It started as a joke. Many moons ago, we were at my parents' house and unwrapping presents with the family. And Dave, my husband Dave, not this Dave, my
Right.
husband Dave, would take the bows off and kept sticking them on my hair. And
Classic.
yeah, and we had a pretty good bundle of bows going on my head, and my mother and my sisters are like, oh no, that's actually kind of cute, that could be a fun hair accessory. And this was born of that. I mean, obviously it's not bows, but it's a lot of ribbons. They were actually packaged bows, and I took two of them and stuck them together on a barrette, and here we are. And I've been doing this for, oh golly, at least 16 years, I think. So
Is it? It's like so. It's a general holiday thing, not a Trek specific or.
no, unfortunately not Trek specific, but this is, y'all.
Nice. Yeah, hell yeah. By the way, I believe I saw if somebody hasn't mentioned, I saw your husband in the audience. He's
Yes,
out in
he is.
our comment section.
Yes, apparently Sohail did not know that Dave is my husband. So he's like, hey, are you related to Brandi?
that means
Like,
he's not
yeah.
he's not watching any of the Tex-Trek streams that you've been on because he always shows up when you're here. So and
He's
apparently
cool like
Sohel
that.
doesn't. So
Yeah, Dave's cool like that. He is always supporting my live streams wherever they may happen.
oh,
So
that's awesome. But and no shade if Sohel can't be here. We have wonderful people, wonderful backup people in the audience like like Brandy's David, not to be confused with our just generic old, like the Dave that we already have at home. With,
Yeah.
The home version.
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about the Trek of 2023 with you, Brandy. But before we get into that, just like a little bit of quick housekeeping. I do need to say thank you to the Tex-Trek Patreon supporters who make the weekly live show possible. So thank you so much. We'll go through everyone's name and the end credits at the end of the show. But we like to celebrate with our patrons every month by having a monthly watch party. And we have one coming up on Saturday, December 16th. I don't know what we're going to be watching, but it'll be like Christmas themed, I guess. And there's going to be like some additional watch party things going on in the Discord in December. So if people out there listening are not in the Tex-Trek Discord server, you should be. There's a link in the description wherever you're watching or listening to this, and we're gonna be doing some, I don't know, some fun stuff in there. Some of it's gonna be open to everyone, but if you are able to help financially contribute to the show, you can sign up on the Patreon as little as $2 a month, and that'll get you into the monthly watch party we do like every month. And there's additional perks too. You can come in like a higher tier, get to like pick what we watch for your birthday and stuff like that. If you're able to help out at those higher levels, we do appreciate it. And just a little bit of news again, WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes over production on stuff seems to be ramping up. So we should have cameras rolling on both Strange New World Season 3 and the Section 31 Michelle Yeoh movie very soon. Don't know when we'll see those. It'll be a while. But they will be shooting, so we'll probably be getting some type of news, casting, stuff like that. That's exciting. And Prodigy, just to remind folks, later this month will return to the streaming world. It'll make its debut on Netflix on Christmas Day, December 25th. So, if any of your nieces or nephews are getting like an iPad for Christmas and, mom and dad are going to load up Netflix on there to keep the kid busy. So like, you should just be like, hey, Junior, how about you click on that Star Trek Prodigy show? That looks like a cool option.
Hey there, fellow kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's actually it's super exciting. It is a real new shot at an audience for a show that deserves it.
Yeah. And season 2 coming next year, so we don't know when, but we'll be covering it in some capacity. I think it'll probably be I'm just making shit up. I haven't like been told this, or I'm not basing this on anyone who says they have any type of information, but I would just assume Netflix will choose to break season 2 in 20 episodes. They'll choose to break that up into 2 different 10-episode drops, and I don't know, maybe we'll get one at the beginning of the year, one at the end of the year, something like that. Maybe one they'll just save till 2025, but I think we'll probably just get like a 10-episode chunk at some point within the next 6 months.
I mean, yeah, 10 episodes, even though like halves, even if they're half hour instead of hour, still kind of feels like we get 2 seasons. So I'll let my mind be tricked into it.
Yeah. And I don't know how it'll be tricky if they do that, because I don't think we're going to have like weekly episode coverage, but
right. Yes, that is tricky.
Is Discovery coming out? Are we doing like an episode of Discovery every week? And then all of a sudden like, hey, here's 10 Prodigy episodes, talk about these too. Like, we'll just kind of have to play it by ear, but it'll be covered. And I'm thinking it'll hopefully be when there's no other new Trek coming out, and we can just be like, oh, we'll talk about 5 episodes this week and 5 episodes next week or something like that. But
Father, should we ask everybody to petition Netflix to release it once a week? Change everything for us.
We can try, but I just know that that's not how Netflix does like American shows that they put in this market. It's like, it ain't gonna happen. So
what if we send Jojo Krakow over to have the boys talk to him?
Yeah, to negotiate. That's who like the Federation. That would be like a Lower Decks joke or something. But the Federation should like recruit some of those mobster types.
Some wise guys.
Yeah, like
Go over
in
there with some heaters.
for certain cultures, they would be like the ideal diplomats. Like that, it's like there could be like a Ferengi governor of a planet who's hard to deal with, but you send Krakow in there, and maybe that'll be like a respectable rival that he'll be able to work
Burn
out
them.
some contract with.
We've talked about this over the years. I still would love for them to revisit that planet. I like the idea that they've sort of almost the same way that we've sort of factionalized with streaming services and things like that. That they would have like this island is this and this landmass covers that, and that they're like if they needed somebody, one of the gangsters, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's just a little small community now. Most people have moved on, but there's some old hardline orthodox piece of the action guys left, and they that would be so fun. And those they'd have to go and find them on the planet amidst all the other chaos. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean they
I
almost did
digress.
that. They almost took us back to the Iosians on Deep Space Nine, but they decided to go back in time to the Trouble with Tribbles episode instead.
I bet Lower Decks is going to get to it, but
I hope so. I mean, we don't know how much Lower Decks there is, but
right.
possibly only one more season. But hopefully, I mean, they could always bring Lower Decks back in 10 years if everyone's like, hey, like, voice actors want to record some lines. Let's we could do like the Futurama thing and just like keep
It's
bringing the
true.
show back. So never say never, I guess. But um, what other news is there? I guess Dave, I haven't told this to anyone, but the show that you and I are going to cover, next year, there's not going to be as much not going to be as much Star Trek as this is going to be kind of ceremonious. I'm going to like build up to this. I'm like, oh, there's
Oh, yeah.
some people are watching, so like I have some people's attention, so let me savor the moment. But uh people might recall like we've covered Deep Space Nine, and before we covered Deep Space Nine, like during COVID, like in 2020, right before Lower Decks premiered, we went through all of the animated series with
Hmm.
our friend Aaron Harvey, who's in the live audience right now,
Yeah,
is
it was
Geek
super
Filter,
fun.
and his co-author on the book, Rich Sheppa. So we talked about all of the animated series. That's easy. It's only 26 episodes. We talked about all 150, 60 something DS9 episodes. So we still we still have several more like legacy Trek shows we've never covered.
What to do
But
with those things, Fathery?
yeah,
Should we get
well,
around to them?
yeah. I mean, it takes a while sometimes. You might say it's been a long road. Yet here we are.
I know that was hard for you.
Well, it's like a December thing. Like last year we were like, get us to like 1,000 subs and I'll sing the terrible song. So I sang the song, and then but next year we're gonna cover Star Trek Enterprise Day. We're gonna start covering it with season one, in January of 2024. But uh
I'm looking forward to this, Father. As you know, I've only seen like about a season worth of it, and I know of its place in Trek fandom. I know it's been reviled at times. I know it's had a critical reappreciation at times. I'm gonna like I'm excited to look at it with 2024 eyes.
it's a show that has it's weird, like it got like so much hate when it came out, and it was like blamed for decades for like you killed the I guess it was like blamed for about a decade, and then they started making like newer shows that everyone wanted to like blame them for killing the franchise. Whatever's like the most recent thing is always going to have like the blame for killing the franchise. But
Sure.
there's people now who like grew up on Enterprise who like really love it. So, and I consider season 4 of Enterprise one of the best seasons of any Star Trek show ever. So it's something that I think will be a lot of fun to cover, and to get a fresh perspective on with Dave seeing a lot of the show for the first time.
Joel is mentioning. Do you say Shran or Shran?
Shran.
Shran.
Shran. Okay, yeah. Who I know is played by
Jeffrey
Jeffrey
Combs.
Combs.
Jeffrey Combs. Yes. So yes, I'm looking forward to that now that I have a much better sense of who he is after DS9. And I know, of course, he's played a million roles, but like that was some of his very best, I think. So
Yeah. And then whenever we get around to covering Voyager, he shows up there too. So
Jill is posting like little heart eyes emojis. So it's for Shran. Shran.
Shran,
Yeah.
Shran,
Then,
Shran.
and I don't
That's
know
how
if this
little I
is.
know it.
I don't know if this was ever really true. I don't know if this was ever really gonna be a thing that happens, but Jeffrey Combs said that it was they were talking about it. He heard this is true. Manny Koto, uh, may he rest in peace. He said that this was gonna be a thing, but the idea of like if they had done like a season 5, Shran would have become a regular character and joined the. I don't know if they actually like had that in the budget to like add like another regular and okay, we're gonna pay Jeffrey Combs for 22 episodes next year. I don't know if that was ever actually going to be like in consideration, but they say it was. So damn it, I wish I had like a season 5 of Enterprise so we could have had that. But
That
there's
would
still like a lot of good Shran content. But yeah,
probably be dope. I don't know. I guess I'll find out.
but yeah, and we can talk more about that like later in the show if we want to tease 2024 and things to come. Maybe we'll save that for the end. But yeah, like 2023 before we this remaining a few days, I guess this remaining couple of weeks we have this year, we can look back at the year of what we had: Picard season 3, Lower
Hmm.
Decks season 4, no, I skipped Strange New World season 2, and then Lower Decks season 4, as well as like some other stuff. But I guess if we just each want to kind of just say kind of our how we were feeling about the Star Trek franchise overall after the last 12 months. Brandi, do you want to go first? And it was kind of like your
Yeah, I
Star
want to know.
Trek of 2023 experience.
Do you feel was it a good year? Was it a middling year? What was?
I think it was overall a good year. I have a rocky history with Star Trek Picard.
Mm-hmm.
I spent half of season 1 hating Girardi, and then finally, when I start to understand and appreciate her, and then they do her dirty in season 2, and I will never forgive them for season 2. All of season 2, I hated it. And because I knew once they went back in time, I'm like, you are going to spend the rest of the season in 2020, whatever, aren't you? You are. You are.
You weren't loving the time travel. Some people were like, "Yay,
No,
Star Trek time travel."
I hated it. That is not the story I wanted. But anyway, so and season 3 was basically the thing that they said that they weren't going to do, and it was Star Trek: The Next Generation reunion, and that's it's okay. It's okay with me. It really is. I enjoyed most of it, and oh my god, they gave us Shaw. They gave us Shaw, so they win season 3 because of Shaw for me. I mean, yes, I love Seven of Nine being on being a first officer and I love all of those things, but Shaw is such a gift, and that they killed him, it makes me feel very unhappy, very very unhappy that they
They
did
gave you a
that.
gift, then took it away.
They did.
Well, it was
They
like the
really
gift was a delicious pie, but the pie had poison in it
did. Yeah,
at
I
the
know.
end.
I know, and it also gave us the wonderful gift of Ed Speleers. So, season 3, although it may have been a bit uneven at times, I think that overall it was strong. Strange
Is
New
Ed
Worlds,
Speleers? Is that the guy who played Picard's son?
Yeah.
Jack Crusher, yeah.
Jack Crusher. Yeah, I couldn't say his
Yeah.
name for a second.
That's okay. Season 2 of Strange New Worlds was great until the final episode. Don't get me started on that, or we will be here all day. And
Well, I've got to
That was
know
the
just
only one
like
I didn't like. That was the
what was like broadly. Was there like just one sort of I mean, maybe a lot of things, but like what was the main reason you didn't like it?
I don't like season ending cliffhangers. The time for that
Oh.
is past. It is a poor way of telling a story, and it makes me so angry that they resorted to this, and they were excited about it. Oh, we brought back the season ending cliffhanger. This is not best of both worlds, my friend. This is not that time anymore. That is it's just a lazy way to build storytelling. And honestly, what's going to happen at the beginning of next season? You have two choices. You have two choices, okay? You die or you run. Those are your two choices. There's nothing else you can do. What kind of resolution is there going to be? It's going to be one of those two things. Okay, sorry. I get really, really
That's
upset
all right.
about
I
season
wanted to
ending
know,
cliffhangers.
and you told me, and now we know.
Yeah, so it's something that I've just never liked. I feel like if you want to like okay, so like Lower Decks season 2, was it? When um Captain Freeman is arrested at the end of it, and that's kind of a
Hmm.
cliffhanger, right? That wasn't the same kind of cliffhanger. It's not like they stopped in the middle of the episode and did to be continued. They resolved that story and then they started a teaser for the next season. And I appreciated that kind of cliffhanger. But this whole stopping in the middle of the action crap, no, no.
Yeah, I think the box office results from like Avengers Endgame show that like most audiences are very okay with the cliffhangers, but I there's definitely a lot of people who definitely share your frustrations with them.
Yeah, well, it's I don't like this trend in movies too with the cliffhangers. Now with
You know,
Avengers, it didn't bother me so much because I knew that that was too big of a story to tell in one movie, and so I was expecting a cliffhanger. But it's just weird to me.
I don't know if you did the last Spider Verse movie.
Yes, I did.
Um, yeah, and I think at this point we're far enough away from it to say just that there's a cliffhanger ending to it.
There is.
Um, and the audience I was in,
Oh, people like that too.
there was some booze in
Yeah,
the
I don't.
audience though.
I
I
lost interest with it. I was like, I don't care what the third movie. I'm like, I'm not. I have zero desire to see it now. I'm like, that was
you know,
where they lost me. Like I'm checked
Well,
out of that.
I was not the best audience for that movie anyway because the humor was a little much for me. But most people I know were actually still they're pretty hyped for it. So I
But yeah,
guess
yeah.
I'm one of those people. Yes, I was startled, but I mean, I felt the cliffhanger coming because I'm like looking at my watch and thinking,
oh yeah.
okay, we're over 2 hours now, and I don't think we're going to get a full resolution here. And I was actually okay with it because Miles Morales is my favorite Spider-Man. And I actually got to meet Shamik Moore
Hmm.
a few months ago when we had our nerd convention, and so I got to tell him all the wonderful things that I thought about him and his work,
Nice.
and also for voicing Miles. And I may have cried. And so I'm
Aw.
sure that it was really funny for him, and so that he could tell his friends about this white lady that cried at him at a fan convention. But he was so
Hey.
nice, and I said all these nice things, and he just looked at me for a second. And he said, "Wow, I really need to learn how to take a compliment."
Yeah, yeah, that's got to be difficult, but I'm happy when people like within their lifetimes do get to know, that their work was appreciated, their art was
Yeah,
appreciated. So
Within their
yeah,
lifetimes,
with and
they
yeah.
don't have to be like the
Van
Van
Gogh, they don't
Gogh
have to, you know,
of voicing Marvel characters. Of like, I
Yeah.
never knew my work was appreciated. Yeah, that would be tragic. So yeah,
Well, that's the
fortunately we have
thing.
these.
Voice actors are the unsung heroes, man. They do not get the pay or the credit that they truly deserve because they have one thing to communicate everything, and that is their voice. That is all they have that they get to communicate. And the voice is possibly one of the most, if not the most important thing, because you can have bad facial expressions and stuff like that, but if you have a lackluster vocal performance, you ruin the whole thing, man.
it's true.
Well, Brandy, what about so they pissed you off with the end of Strange New Worlds, but
Yep.
we had like a season of Lower Decks after that. So
Yes, which I enjoyed immensely. I adore Lower Decks with every fiber of my being, and I had a
that's
really
your
good
favorite,
time.
right?
I
Of the
I wouldn't say
not that
my
we have to. It's not a competition. We don't
yeah.
have to pick favorites, but
I would say it's probably the strongest season of Star Trek for this year for me. It's simply my opinion because it never let me down, and it gave me Moopsie, y'all. It gave me Moopsie. So and I love Boynes. You guys know this already if you've seen any of the or heard any of the other text treks that I was on when we talked about Lower Decks. I'm a huge Boimler fan. So so yeah, that was probably the strongest season for me. It could have been Strange New Worlds, but they had an episode, I think it was Among the Lotus Eaters, that was just kind of,
Hmm. Yeah, season two,
That was
episode
quite
and
the
4.
speed
That
bump.
was I
yeah,
misspoke earlier. I said the finale is the only one I didn't like. I didn't dislike Among the Lotus Eaters, but I
right,
didn't like it
same.
either. I was just very meh on it. But all the other
You know,
ones I liked, except for, and then the one I disliked at the end. But
yeah, it's what they gave me live action Boimler, so they get high marks for that. And also, they gave me a musical episode, which I am still listening to that soundtrack at least weekly. I know all of the songs by heart now. But that last episode really dragged it down for me. So my favorite of of this year would be, as far as the
hmm.
season, it would be Lower Decks.
And then were there any other particular highlights or low points? Just with I don't know with any of the crazy news around Prodigy or like any like comics or books that came out that were like that really stood out or.
Yeah, the whole Prodigy thing, that made me super angry. Big black mark against you, Paramount Plus. Stupid bean counters, and wasn't really all that fond of the very short treks. Did not find them amusing or entertaining for the most part. Found some of them a little bit offensive,
Mm.
actually. But uh, and the comics are just, we're living in a golden age of Star Trek comics right now because there are
Yes.
just so many, and it's amazing. And I'm behind on them, and I need to catch up. But luckily, I will be catching up this coming year because I am going to be doing some comic book reviews with Dan Gunther on his show Positively Trek. So we'll be playing with those in the book club episodes coming up.
That's awesome. I love when sort of underrepresented, not just Trek anything, but like but for us Trek stuff gets a little spotlight.
Yeah,
Those creators, you were talking about voice actors being underappreciated, and those comic guys are doing some amazing work, and they deserve some spotlight.
Yeah, and people
agree.
can buy those comics at Rogues Gallery Comics and Games in Round Rock, Texas.
Right, it's a thing. But also, Aaron is working on doing covers periodically for IDW too. So our own Geek Filter, Aaron,
Yeah.
doing awesome work.
Yeah, so the more comics that get sold, the more variant covers that IDW's got to be asking Aaron for. So support the Star Trek
I need
comic
Aaron to do
books.
some interior art. I don't know where he stands on it, but Aaron, I'm on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
something TAS.
Yeah, hell
I,
yeah.
I I will say too, just comics in general. I don't think people really realize this is not kids stuff for the most part. Yes, there are comic books geared towards children, but comic books in general, of every genre, are telling really fantastic and amazing stories, and they should get more attention than they do. And that's not just in Trek, and it's not just in Marvel, it's not just in DC. There are so many things out there that just aren't in the public consciousness. And just go to your local comic store and start looking around because there is so much there.
I'll second this, obviously.
As well you should, sir. As well you should.
Well, Brady, if you don't have, if I can't speak, if you don't have anything else for Star Trek in 2023, I guess I'll just kind of say my hot take on the year looking
Hmm.
back. But it was, I do feel like less, I don't just like beat up and worn out at the end of this year than I think at like the end of last year. There was a lot more content in 2022 than 2023. We actually had I think 50 episodes within the 52 weeks of 2022 because there is like some overlap. We were getting like season 2 of Picard at the same time as season 4 of Discovery and stuff like that. And then oh yeah, they put like a Picard and Strange New Worlds. They had like a finale and a premiere the same week. It was a lot of work. covering all that, but we did it. We covered all of that, and Dave and I were still like working our way through DS9 too in
Mhm.
2022. So 2023 was like, it was a bit more manageable. We still like have only like, we took, I guess, like just our show with Tex-Trek, like we took like 4 weeks off, but I feel like that kind of doesn't count because two of those weeks, Rachel and Aaron were doing streams anyways, and then we did like we had to like double up on our podcast distribution because we had some great opportunities like Ira Stephen Bear agreeing to an interview, so we had to put that out there. And we also had a surprise musical being released in the middle of a season, so we're like, oh, we're gonna have to like just like find a way to like cover an extra episode, and right when Fatheree and Rachel are like about to go to Vegas for STLV. So the timing on a lot of that stuff, it doesn't necessarily feel like we had 4 weeks off, but I guess it was
Father, there was some day we were recording something at like what 9 a.m., 10 a.m., something like that. It was
oh, that was
interesting.
that was when I was going for the Star Trek cruise, and we were like pre-recording our
Hmm.
Picard coverage.
Yep.
um but it all worked out. We covered everything, and I had a great time with the shows, with the content that we got. Picard season 3 was a lot of fun. Even like Dave and I were kind of we I felt like we were like the only two people who weren't on board at the beginning of the season,
It's true.
and then I turned around pretty quick. Like I think episode 2, I was turned around. um it took Dave like a little bit longer to get convinced, but we ended up both like pretty happy with how things ended.
Hmm.
Not perfect, but pretty good. And I had a really good time with Strange New Worlds. It's been my favorite of the modern shows, and so I was happy to see it back. And like I said, like I liked all of it except for 2 episodes in there. So 8 out of 10 is pretty good. That's a solid B. I was never an A student, so who am I to judge? And then I had a great time with Lower Decks as well, and with the collaboration we did with Aaron and Drawn to Trek, and the people over at the Trek Geeks Network. So that was fun, just getting to hopefully expose the Tex Trek audience, and uh, get some other listeners. So all in all, I feel like pretty good in terms of like I guess the content we're getting. I guess there's just some concern, I suppose, with the streaming industry as a whole. With their shows aren't getting like the big budgets they were a few years ago for several reasons a lot of people have discussed over the last few months. But yeah, so we might be looking at like the 50 new episodes a year. That might just be an anomaly of 2022 that's not going to be repeated, which in some ways makes life easier. In other
Father,
ways,
Trek loves anomalies.
I mean,
They're
if
always
there's
picking him up.
when there's not new Star Trek coming out, I kind of panic because then I'm like, oh my god, what do I like base my content around? And if I'm not like doing the show every week, then what? Like I need, like, it gets just easier if I just have like one thing to just stress about and make like my whole week about, and I can focus like all my energy into like doing this one thing and then feel good when it's done. So when there's like a new episode of Star Trek every week, it's a lot easier to plan our content. Uh but yeah, just Prodigy being taken away from us, no one liked that. It's good news that we're getting it back, but that was not fun, and then the strikes weren't fun, so we're gonna have a less Trek next year, largely because of the strikes of this year. But we had what? So there's 30 new episodes this year. 20 were live action, and then 10 were animated. I think next year we're gonna get 10 live action episodes with the final season of Discovery, and then you know 10 animated Lower Decks, and then 10 or 20 animated Prodigies. So about like the same amount next year as we got this year, maybe like a little bit less, but it'll still be like we'll still be able to do like a show like this next year and be like, we can talk about like all of this content we got this year. So it's I guess it's just like it's a little. don't want to say like pessimistic, but it's like it's not as it doesn't feel like we're the embarrassment of riches of just like everything's getting greenlit. 5 shows is like nonstop. Like a year ago, like they were still talking about like making like another Kelvin movie. So I think they might finally be giving up on that. I think they're gonna try to do something different in the movies going forward. Uh, I still think we'll see Chris Pine as Kirk someday. I might be in 20 years, might be in 2 years, I don't know, but if I've learned anything over like just movies and TV shows of the last 2 decades, it's nothing that like previously existed can be left alone. Everything will eventually get like sequels, prequels, spin-offs, reboots, remakes, so there will be like more Kelvin Star Trek someday.
It's time for
Someone will do
a.
it.
It's time for already a prequel to the Section 31 show that hasn't been made.
Yeah, I'm sure someone is pitching ideas. Dave, what about you? Just kind of your overall just impressions of Star Trek after the last year, after 2023.
Father, I think I like it better when we're not in the embarrassment of riches era, because when there's that much content, it's just there's always I'm just waiting for diminishing returns to start happening, and so I kind of liked having a slightly smaller year in some ways, but not the anxiety of like losing Prodigy or thinking we were going to lose Prodigy, obviously. Um, and the strikes pressure on all of this. This is the year we found out that Discovery is coming to an end too, right?
Yeah, they
Mhm.
announced that
Um,
back in February. When I was
and
on the
so,
Star Trek crew, I was like on the ship with like
mm,
Doug Jones when
hmm
they announced that. And
oh, that's kind of too bad. I
I
mean,
wasn't like I wasn't like in the same room with them, but we like
yeah. I mean, I guess he probably knew. So,
he said someone like called him that morning to like tell
oh
him.
wow, just that morning.
But yeah,
That's kind of intense. Um, but yeah, like so there was like the Trek anxiety stuff that I feel like from Prodigy, the strikes, and finding it that they're like we're gonna like tighten up on budgets. That Discovery was being shortened to 5 seasons, which I think is could be good for that show, which has always been kind of hit and miss for me. But still, that was kind of the rougher side of it. What we actually got, or what I watched, the Strange New World stuff and Picard, I was really quite happy with in the end, despite some always a little bit of a roller coaster. Um, the with Picard. I kind of do think that maybe this is the season that they should have just done from the beginning. I like Raffi, and I've liked some of the other stuff they did along the way. I kind of enjoyed those journeys, but this was like a big old crowd pleaser, nostalgia fest. Felt like the kind of stuff they do in the movies, but like better than the Kelvin movies for me. Kind of good time. Like you said, I did not like it right out of the gate, though. I remember I didn't. I did not like Captain Shaw in the first one, in the first episode. He was just too
oh yeah,
abrasive.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I forgot
I
about
was
that.
just like, he's cartoonishly abrasive. It's too much. Um, I needed to at least see some other side of him, I think, and the second episode started texturing it in, and then I was like, okay, I can work with some of that. And you remember Fatheree? We were like, oh god, Picard has a son just like Kirk had a son. Um,
Yeah, that
Jack
was.
Crusher is going to be, David
I didn't want to see
2.0.
David Marcus the next generation is what I kept. I was
Yeah.
like if Picard and Crusher have a secret love child, I'm gonna hate this season, and they did, but I didn't hate it.
Right. And so the thing that for me is that I think a combination of all those actors in one place. I know some of it was nostalgia, but I also think the writers, I think, were giving them good material to work with for a kind of crowd pleaser style. Not as in depth as I would like. My favorite Trek is a little bit more in depth, but on the crowd pleaser style, I thought it really came through, and I loved like Zen Worf and Jack ended up being a really good character. Shaw obviously ended up being a great character. I still kind of like get emotional thinking about Ro Laren's last moments.
Mm.
Data, fighting lore in his mind. And even some of the stuff like with Troy and Riker together. So that was like it made an emotional experience for me, and that's why I can look past a lot of the flaws, because I think if you look at it kind of like fairly objectively, then it's another Borg thing, which they done some representation of the Borg in every season of Picard. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Changeling infiltrators is not like itself like a great idea. We've seen it before. There's the Crusher. No. Beverly's disappearance from everybody's lives and kind of her secret cover up felt like something that they really had to stretch to explain. But I ultimately thought that those scenes came through for me, and so I actually ended up very happy with it. It won me over on an emotional level, and I felt like felt that warmth of old TNG with it. Um, so then we come along to Strange New Worlds, and the weirdest thing for me about that was that it was a low Christopher Pike season. It was, we would learn that Ensign Mount, yes,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
was he had a kid, and they had arranged to sort of minimize his presence in some episodes so that so he could be with his newborn son,
Daughter.
daughter. And that's, by the way, very cool of him. I dig that. But
And I feel like people made such a big deal out of that, but I feel like he really wasn't like that absent compared to season one. They just kind of front loaded the Pike Light episodes near like the front of the season.
right, it may be sort of like a psychological trick, but it did seem like he was a bit more in the background in general. And that was another one where, like, the first episode, I was not super on board. I didn't like that. Spock stealing the Enterprise felt like a little bit old hat as far as this franchise goes.
That was one of the ones I liked the least of the season, but I still had fun with it. But yeah, it was
And then they
it had
did the
some dumb
thing
stuff
with
too.
Mbenga and Chapel doing their
Yeah.
getting ramped up on steroids and kicking ass, which felt weirdly non-Trekky to me. But they would later expand on it throughout the season and add a lot of depth to it, so that kind of paved over that criticism. Um, and The second episode out was the big courtroom episode. That was one of my favorite episodes of the whole season.
Ad Astra Aspera, right?
Per Aspera, yeah. Great spotlight on number one. Leon got to do her thing, and like I felt like had a lot of nuance added to her. Kirk got to get his moment to kind of shine. Crossover episode and musical for me are like peak Trek kind of happy episodes. And I didn't mind the cliffhanger. I was mostly happy because I felt like my biggest criticism of the Gorn was that just that they were these kind of monolithic monsters, and I wanted something added to them to feel more Star Trekky and give some nuance to them and say, hey, they're not just evil monsters who need to be, I don't know, genocided or something. And so them at least broaching the possibility of some kind of biological drives that make them do what they do. I was happy to hear that. I was happy that it didn't look like Captain Batel is going to get offed. I don't think. So
They're gonna
overall,
switcheroo and kill Ortega's instead in the
I
season 3
mean,
premiere.
it's possible. I forget who it was in our audience, but who was saying, maybe it was like, was it Jill or somebody was saying they're worried about all the original characters on it. They're all potentially on the hit list.
Anyone not Batel, who is not in the original series.
I mean, I don't think Batel's safe necessarily.
I don't either.
I think she is. I think they've drawn it out like it'll feel too predictable if they kill her now.
uh, you know, I still feel like there's like swerves within swerves that people sometimes like to do, where it's like, oh, we saved her, and then her ship blows up or something. Like it's there's. I won't. I need to get through that first episode or two and know before I know it. But I'm leaning towards she's probably going to be okay. So anyway, and I don't watch Lower Decks. Don't hate me. So I don't have any opinions on that, other than that I did love the crossover. For whatever reason, I like them in live action. The rapid fire gags and stuff somehow just don't hit me when I'm watching it on. When I watch the show, the animated show itself. So I have no opinions on the thing that I know for a lot of people is a favorite. But yeah, I feel like ultimately Picard came through against odds, and Strange New Worlds, after a somewhat rough start, ended up being pretty satisfying for me. Sometimes incredibly satisfying.
And we can remind people who might not know, but you and I have we've been like pretty big fans of Strange New Worlds, but we don't like the Gorn, the way that they've handled the
Right.
Gorn.
Right.
That's
My one real serious criticism is that I kind of hate the Gorn.
my only two complaints of season one of Strange New Worlds is I did not like the Gorn, and I also did not like the way that the show depicted James Kirk. After season two, I now love the way that the show handles Kirk. I think that they have a great grasp on that character, and I'm looking forward to seeing more Kirk in season three. But I still don't like what they do with the Gorn. But there was only one Gorny episode, so I still am enjoying the show. I don't know if I assume I'm gonna hate the season three premiere because I really dislike the Gorn. But I'm still looking forward to giving season three a shot whenever they're finally able to get that shot and made and everything in 2025 or whatever we're actually sitting down to watch it.
So, what else? What else we got, Father?
Well, I guess some of the like big events of the year. I It's always sad to like talk about this, but like a big franchise that's been around for as many decades as Star Trek. We're always going to be losing people. There's been people working on Star Trek since the '60s.
Sure.
Um, but I guess like the two big prominent deaths this year were Annie Wershing, our new Borg queen. Um, who died of she had I guess been struggling with cancer for a while and was sick when she did like all the Queen stuff they shot in season two, and she passed away on January 29th of this year, right before Picard season three premieres. They had like that dedication to her in the first episode. Uh, she made her first Star Trek appearance on Star Trek Enterprise. Speaking of like
Mm.
things Dave and I will be doing in 2024, though. She first showed up in a season two episode on Enterprise as a different character, and the other death is also an Enterprise one. Manny Kodo, who joined the Star Trek Enterprise writers' room in season three, in which a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's like the season when like that show started getting really good," and then he became the showrunner. He was in charge of season four, and I think that's one of like the best seasons of Trek ever made. Great dude. I always hoped that he was a young enough writer. I always thought like he would be a great guy for one of these news shows to reach out to, get him involved. He was someone who I also thought like when I started making Star Trek content a few years ago, like, oh, Manny Kodo, he's probably I could probably like someday like sit down and interview him. I have so many questions I'd love to ask him about Star Trek Enterprise. I wish that he had done more interviews and stuff. I kind of wish that there was more stuff like on the record that he had been talked to a bit more. But yeah, I mean we lost both Annie Wershing and Manny Kodo. I never saw Manny Kodo at a convention, but I did see Annie Wershing at Star Trek Mission in Chicago, and I think she's also in Vegas and last year. Both those conventions in 2022. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on either of those two, Annie Wershing or Manny Kodo.
I don't feel like I don't delve deep enough into Trek fandom to sort of forge the connections that a lot of y'all do at conventions and things. And a part of me sort of wishes I did that, but it's just kind of not where how my fandom works. And So I'm glad you got to have those experiences, Fathery. I think that's really cool, and I'm looking forward to that Enterprise season 4. I feel like I'm gonna have to do some trudging possibly to get there, but I'm willing to do it.
Yeah, that's a bit how I guess that's how I feel when I watch Enterprise. I'm just like looking forward to season 4 the whole time, but then when I get there, I'm so happy.
Yeah, yeah, and like I'll be excited just to sort of learn a lot of Trek lore that I don't know. Trek Enterprise has been getting a little bit of love from like Lower Decks and stuff, right?
Yeah, and Strange New Worlds reference because I mean it's kind of
That's
like
right. Yeah,
it's the only one that takes place before it, I guess, other than the 2 seasons of Discovery. So it's easy for them to reference. They can't reference Voyager or Next Generation or anything else.
right.
So
Well, what I don't understand is how Boimler can have a Mirror Universe Archer action figure.
because there's been several Ferengi have gone
That
to the Mirror Universe who would
Right,
probably.
right.
So
I
I'm
forgot
sure
about
like
that.
when Zek and Quark came back, they were like one of them, maybe both of them were like selling like you want like a variant Archer? Like we got one. We went to an alternate universe, so you better believe we found ways to monetize that.
Do you
Yeah.
think that they were accurate with the lore and the look of it? I
They
was
got the look right, so
Oh,
that's
they
why
okay.
absolutely got the look right, yeah.
that's all
Well,
they care about.
that's some nice craftsmanship for their product. Good job, guys. Good job, Ferengi.
Yeah, I will say that it broke my heart when I heard that Annie Wersching had passed away because I've seen her in a million things over the years. And, I was originally born a redhead. I know you can't tell that now, but because my hair is now going through, I've entered the Terrigen mists. Let's just put it that way.
And
Always
you
And
love
used to
a
have like
comic
really dark
reference.
hair.
uh,
Didn't you used to have like it was like jet black at one point, right? Or did I imagine
I
that?
there's a story behind that. But long story short, I started coloring my hair when I was in my teens because it started going this ash color, and I wanted to maintain my red hair. And so then after a while, I got creative, and it had been a few other colors. There was some black in it, there was some blonde in it, and there was like 2 or 3 different shades of red. And then I had to be in, well, I didn't have to be, I was chosen to be in a community theater production of Les Miserables, and the director said, no, you can't have red hair. And I'm like, okay. So, and he's like, and I said, well, can I just wear a wig? And he's like, no, we're not really doing wigs. And so I can't, the thing about black hair is that to bleach that out to a lighter color takes weeks. Because if you try to do it all at once, your hair will break off and
Mm.
fall out. You don't want that. And so what I had to do instead was color all of my hair black because I had to go with what the darkest color was. And I wanted to be red. He said I couldn't have red, so I had to dye it black. And it was weird, but after a while, I really started to enjoy it. And then I just got so tired of the maintenance. I'm like, screw this. And my hair stylist, she just said, you know what? You've got all this beautiful silver in your regrowth. Why don't we just grow it out? And I'll help you with some of the, we bleached some things out. And it took me a couple years, but this is all natural. This is how my hair comes out of my head now.
But your gingerness that was like a bond for you and Annie.
That
Uh,
I'm always a sucker
Wershing.
for a redhead. Yeah, male or female, I'm a sucker for a
Hmm.
redhead because we have been persecuted all our lives,
And if
and
you've got the comics gene in you, there's only about a million awesome redheads in comics, from
just
Mary Jane to Phoenix and all the rest.
a couple, just a
Yeah.
couple. Not big representation there at all. There totally is. So yeah, but yeah, I was, and also it's one of those things that just break my heart because I'm like, she's younger than I am.
Mm,
She was younger than I am. And
yeah,
she
Yeah.
I
Oh,
don't like that
how
at
is this
all.
she's
fair?
like a couple months shy of her 46th birthday, I believe.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, it
yeah,
hurt
that's
me.
brutal.
She had two children, I believe.
Mhm. Yeah, and it just broke my heart And I'm just, I lost my father to cancer, and so F cancer, y'all, because it sucks.
For
Yeah, I
It's
sure.
guess
just
we've
not right.
all three of us have lost a parent to
It's
cancer.
true.
It sucks, man. And it hurts me when someone dies that young of anything, but especially of
Yeah,
cancer. I
yeah,
cried over
really,
Chadwick
really sad.
Boseman when he passed away too. It's just,
Oh well,
cancer sucks.
those were both very similar in that these people were big fans of Star Trek, Black Panther, these huge things, and they chose not to share that with the public. So it hit so many people when
Hmm.
it hits. It's just
Yeah.
like kind of a
I
shockwave goes
hope
off.
that behind the scenes that they had good support and family and friends who were, looped in who could know about it, so that they, didn't feel that weight, that there was some easing of their burden. But I guess I don't know that.
Well, I do believe that Chadwick definitely had a good support system with his family, his kids, his friends, and his co-stars. I mean, everybody um, from the Marvel universe when he was in, the Avengers movies. I know that they were all really surrounding him with love and support. So he had that. Annie, I'm sure that she had a lot of support from her family and friends. I can't imagine otherwise. And I can understand why both of them didn't publicize those battles, because it was already hard enough to go through it, but to go through it under a magnifying glass, no, no.
Hmm.
I'm gonna read this comment from our live audience from DT, who says, "I think Annie said at Mission Chicago that it was her first Trek Con and that she was glad that she went through with it, knowing what we know now and how exhausting it must have been." And yeah, I'm glad that she was there. It looked like she was enjoying. You wouldn't believe it was someone with terminal cancer. She was living it up. She had like a little like green like crown on her. That's like, oh, she's wearing like a crown because she's the Borg queen. So it's like but she had like
Yeah,
this little crown on her head, and
that's
um
cool. I hope that was, that outpouring of fan love was something that she was able to really process and feel. That's why I say I always hope that these people get to know that they're beloved before they pass, because it
yeah,
doesn't always happen.
yeah,
It's
and
a
she did.
lucky thing.
Not to make it sound like it was all like doom and gloom in 2023, but yeah, that was it's always rough losing people. But we still have like three of the original series out of the the big seven of that started this whole thing. We still have Walter, George, and Bill Shatner all made it through another year. So this when after you get like your late 80s, early 90s like them, I think just like every year is kind of a hell of an accomplishment. So
Father, I
hope
think some people kind of want Shatner to step off the mortal coil.
yeah.
I can have a little dark humor here.
Well, hopefully
He might
next
bring it
year.
upon himself. He might bring it upon himself.
Best case scenario is like next year we're saying like, look, all three of them made it through another year, and boy howdy, Shatner sure has turned over a new leaf at the ripe old age of 92, and he's just really impressed everyone with how great he's been this year. So
I'll say this. I remember his. I think, was this the year that he went up in the shuttle, or was that
no,
last year?
that was 2022, I guess.
Okay. And
It's
he
been
had
over a
some
year.
interesting observations that were, I think, were important towards, environmental concerns and whatever you might say of the man who clearly has weaknesses. I think that observation coming from someone as prominent as him was a good thing, if a little bit dark. Because he was basically like, space is not the kind of cool thing that it was on our show. We're
Mm.
not there. He's like, it is an empty and unhappy place, and he's like, our home on Earth is what we've got, and we need to take better care of it. And I think that's a cool thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like he's kind of a jackass, but he says like profound stuff sometimes.
Sure.
Sometimes, so I don't know. I don't know where Brandy where you fall on Shatner, but I think he's just kind of a jerk. I don't think he's like evil or anything.
He's full of himself, that is for sure.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, and he is not. He
But so
Okay.
is Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart's just better at like not showing that side to the public. But
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, my younger sister, who is a cosplayer, with her husband. They do lots of Star Wars stuff. She has had her own dealings with the ego of Shatner,
Mm.
which basically he decided when he was at FanX, which is our nerd convention here in Utah, that he needed a bigger dressing room, and he basically commandeered the dressing room for the 501st and the Rebel Legion. So they had nowhere to put on their costumes after that. Did he need that entire room? No, he did
That
not.
is such a typical Shatner
It
story.
is.
That aligns with like everything I've ever
Everything,
heard
yeah.
about him.
So basically, I have never been a Shatner fan, even as a very young child watching Star Trek, the original
Mm.
series. I did not like Shatner as Kirk. Kirk
Oh,
as a
interesting.
character, yeah, but he's okay. But I was always a Spock girl, let's be honest. But
Did you like on Strange New Worlds? How are you liking Kirk there?
you know, um, I couldn't judge by the season finale of season 1 because that was an alternate reality. That
Sure,
was
sure.
something that wasn't real. So I was waiting for season 2 because I knew we were going to get
Mm.
more Jim Kirk, and uh, I was really impressed actually, and I really love uh, uh, Paul's interpretation
Yeah,
of
Paul Wesley was great in that.
yeah.
Was episode 3?
Yes, magnificent. He was magnificent.
That's my favorite
But
episode of
again,
the show of Strange
yeah,
New
but
Worlds.
again, that was an alternate reality Jim Kirk, and so it wasn't until a
Yeah.
few episodes later that we got actual Jim Kirk, and he brought it. He brought it, and I'm really just very excited at his interpretation of the character, and I feel like he's made it his own, but also is paying homage to what has come before. Not, I mean, it's like a little bit Shatner, and it's a little bit Chris Pine, but it's not. It's still Paul's interpretation of it, and I can't wait to see what he does next.
Yeah. When I watch Paul Wesley as Kirk, I can totally buy it as a younger version of when I watch Shatner as and I think Shatner's performance as Kirk is brilliant, and the reason why the franchise became like because of what Shatner and Nimoy were both doing. Um but I can when I watched the the season 1 finale, and we got like the alt timeline Kirk there. Paul Wesley's perform like now I see. Oh, he was intentionally playing it very like he was underplayed. Everything's extremely subdued. I thought he was just like delivering a bland performance. I didn't realize it was like, oh, they're just like intentionally like, and they probably could have handled that better, but like they were intentionally just like, oh, everything's gonna be like super dialed down, and then when we turn on the charm in season 2, it's gonna hit harder. Was clearly what they were thinking, but I just needed to see that fully realized because I was very concerned. I was like, is this guy going to be on the show a lot? I am not. I don't know if I'm going to be able to work with this, but I ate crow. People can check the tape. People can go back and listen to it. Dave and I covered it, and I was like, I am so sorry I ever doubted you, Paul Wesley. You're a beautiful Captain Kirk, and like
I
I
would
said,
like
I
to
can't wait
say
to see more in season 3.
I felt like I was the odd man out because I liked his season finale one because I felt like I saw in it a reflection of Kirk in his William Shatner's Kirk from the original series in his kind of more subdued moments. As Kirk the tactician, or Kirk when sort of scenes are a little bit darker, and I felt like he was bringing something to that. So but you remember, Father, when we did our what we want to see in season 2 of Strange New Worlds, I think my number one thing is I wanted the real Kirk. I wanted Kirk who was not just the caricature of him, the womanizer, the punch or screw everything in sight, but the one that Shatner did show on the
Yeah.
original series, who very high on empathy, looking for the peaceful
The
solution.
guy who believed Uhura when Uhura was like stressed out at the bar, like, oh my god, I'm going crazy, and then like the stranger like is like, oh, I just showed up and I can help you, and yeah, he was just
Yep,
like
yep.
totally, he was totally, it was
And
like, oh, yeah, it's like young Kirk. This is a pre-Captain Kirk.
and who is also thinking a few moves ahead of most people, and is a little bit full of himself. I actually loved his scenes with Sam in season 2. I like Sam too, and I feel like
Yeah.
they were the right mixture for to kind of show this brotherly affection and fighting. Of like, I thought they hit a good balance with that. I'm still hoping that they will in some way find a way to essentially eulogize Sam by doing like a little flash forward or something, since TOS never did it, but now they've got Paul Wesley, they could do it. And I don't know how you would work it in story wise, but I think there's lots of ways clever writers could, where you would flash forward to it whenever he leaves the show, say, and show Kirk some moments afterward, where he's processing his death or something like that. I think that'd be the coolest thing.
Well, the I guess the sad part of 2023 was like learning about like the cancellation of Discovery, and it was like the actual like final season of Picard. So Picard is gone. Even like the people running that show were desperately like, oh, let's just like keep this going and do like a Star Trek Legacy show. But that is going to be a far off future decision if there's like any continuation not happening soon. But oh, and then like the weird thing with Prodigy, with like it was like deleted from Paramount Plus and didn't have a home, and now it has a home, and they're now it, like maybe could be a season 3, but who knows if that'll happen, when that'll happen, whatever. But the things that got green lit, that we know are coming, that new additions to the franchise that we can talk about now, that were announced this year, the Section 31 movie, with a show that got, I guess, either promoted or demoted from a show to a movie, and the Starfleet Academy show, which they've resumed development on that Academy show. Now, they still have to do like a lot of casting. They haven't announced any casting for that, I guess.
Do we know
But
much beyond Tawny Newsome being in the writers' room?
no, this is like the people that are like writers and producers on it. So they've obviously had to stop work during the strike, and then when the WGA went back to work, they did resume development on that show. And Tawny says they've been writing, and so I expect early 2024. Hell, we might get casting news before the end of the year. We might get some casting news for the Academy show, but that would be now that the actors aren't striking, they can resume like auditions and negotiations with actors, and
And we don't.
well,
In addition to not knowing what the casting is, we don't know like what the characters they'd be casting are, right?
right. So we'll probably get actor names first, and we may or may not have characters. We might be like, so and so has been cast, and that might be like all we know. And then later they'll be like, oh, they're actually playing this character. But that'll there will be a lot on that Academy show in 2024, I think, because we plan to start shooting
Brandy,
relatively soon.
are you into either of those shows, Section 31 or Academy? Yay, nay? Were you?
I'll watch Michelle Yeoh in any damn thing. I don't care what it is. So if she, yeah, and see, that was my concern, is if you're going to do a Section 31 show, if and you don't have Michelle Yeoh, I'm not interested. But I would still watch it though, because it's Trek. I watch all the Trek. But
But like the concept is not like a winner in and of itself for you,
it,
which
you know, uh, it's not my favorite thing. Clandestine secret agencies within Starfleet. It's not my favorite thing in the world, because it's just all very CIA crap, and it's just
Yeah.
it's
My
not
my
that exciting
least
for me.
my least favorite thing of Star Trek of 2020. I can say this with total certainty, but the thing
hmm
that, and there aren't a lot of things like that I'll say like I hate. Like I try to avoid that unless like I really really mean it. But I said it earlier, like I hate the Gorn in Strange New Worlds, and that might even be like a little hard. Maybe I should just say like I really 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 dislike. I borderline do hate the Gorn in Strange New Worlds. But the one thing that I can say unapologetically, I full on hate, I despise, it drives me insane, when Worf calls Section 31 a critical part of
Mm.
Starfleet intelligence or Starfleet security or whatever he says. Like I hate that being in the canon. I hate that being in universe. That is
That was
so not.
Picard season 3, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
that I and I don't want that to be the case with like the Section 31 movie. I don't want it to be what they've described it as Mission Impossible meets Guardians of the Galaxy, and I don't want it to
Mm.
be like a defense of Section 30. If anything, I want to see like
You
Michelle
don't want it
Yeoh.
to be about a defense of those kind of secret operative teams and stuff.
Yeah, no, because I think like actually like the most evil forces in the world are people like the CIA and
Right.
MI6, these different like
You know,
intelligent agencies over like in the 20th and 21st centuries have honestly done like more harm than I think anything else.
Worf was
So
supposed to have gone into this Zen pacifist
yeah,
realm,
you have a
and so
beautiful
he should
arc.
not be all about this stuff that was like Garrick's world. He
That one line does so much harm.
what's that?
That one line does so much harm. It's really
Yeah, I
bad.
would love it if they could wriggle out of it, but chances are they were kind of going with a lot of the critical side of me about Picard can say there's lots of kind of tropes and stuff that they fell in on. Like they probably shouldn't have done a Death Star run type scene like they did. They did. It was very entertaining. I liked it. It was still cool. But there was some stuff that was a little kind of dopey writing in there, and I think they just wanted to. They're like, oh yeah, Worf would support this, kind of somehow forgetting that was not the Worf that they were showing. They were just, oh, this is the Worf as he was in TNG. Might have said that. And
Well,
and
it's
yeah,
not even the thing of like Worf saying. It's just like I don't want like Section 31 to be a thing that like Worf and Riker casually discuss, or like it be a thing that like is part of this like that it's like a known functional part of Starfleet. In
right,
Deep Space Nine, it was depicted as like a weird off the books organization that may or
right.
may not exist. That if any like official channels start like talking about it, like it always gets like shut down mysteriously, but no one really knows exactly who is in Section 31 and who isn't, and like
Yeah, it's weird if they just change that by fiat. If they're just like, yeah, that's just what Section 31 is now. Everybody knows about it. It's Star Trek CIA.
And it seemed to have started with like Star Trek Into Darkness, where like, which kind of made sense because that was like an alternate timeline, and that was like what Marcus was doing over there, and it's all because because the Kelvin blew up and it changed everything, and blah 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 blah. That works. But the weird thing is like after that, like everything they've done in modern Trek has kind of been with like the same thinking of like, oh, let's just like depict Section 31 as like a functional black ops part of Starfleet, and there could be like people walking around on the USS Discovery with like a black badge that are part of Section 31 and stuff like that.
Right. Geek Filter, Aaron in the audience says what I know that we have been hoping for, Fatheree. He says, since the character seems to want, that is Michelle Yeoh, seems to want to dismantle anything she's a part of, maybe she'll kill Section 31. Maybe that was the point of getting her to join. I would love it if it was kind of something
Yeah.
surprising and subversive like that. And we've been rooting for some variant of that since they mentioned it.
And I keep saying, Star Trek really had a missed opportunity with the 50th anniversary. I get it. There wasn't anything in production in 2016 other than Star Trek Beyond. So, but hell, that movie could have done more to celebrate the 50th, I think. But we're owed a big celebration. We have the 1000th episode of Star Trek coming up in a few years. Do something big and special for the 1000th episode. I can't think of anything that would be like more Star Trek than like, oh, who's like the real true enemy of the Star Trek universe, who like the real big bad, the final boss of it is like humanity has to wrestle with its own demons, with its own dark side, with it turns out like the part of ourselves that's bad is like truly like our greatest foe, and
You know
let's have
what?
like some Starfleet heroes take down Section 31 once and for all.
Father, that was a thematic on TOS quite often, and in the '60s they always, although they had this very altruistic or maybe I should say like almost nationalistic and somewhat egotistical but humanistic vibe too, where they'd be like, oh yes, you humans are a destructive species, but there's greatness in you. That would that's a good through line to have for something like to do. So they could do it. And
I
by the
don't
way,
know that they'll I don't know that they'll do it with the
I
Section
don't
31 movie though.
I don't know
Because
either. I don't
because
know either.
timey-wimey. Timey-wimey.
Yeah. Brandy, where were you on the Starfleet Academy show?
At first I was like, why do I want to watch people go to school? And then I'm too old for that. I don't want to watch people go to school. But then when I heard Tawny
There's this Harry
Newsome
Potter
was,
franchise that all the bean counters are keenly aware of.
you know what? I don't want to talk about Harry Potter. Thank you very
I
much.
getcha.
Um, yeah.
But
Yeah, don't bring up
before I
that turf ass shit, Dave. No one here likes
listen,
Harry Potter.
listen, everybody in our audience, 90% of these people have enjoyed Harry Potter at some time, and I'm totally on board the kind of shelving it because of J.K. But it is a genre. I mean, the whole YA thing grew out of that, and that's still I think going pretty solidly in books and stuff. So there's definitely an interest. But finish your thought. Finish your thought. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. When I heard that Tawny Newsome was going to be a writer, I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter what this is. I'm in. I'm in. If Tawny's involved, I'm in. Doesn't matter. So there we are. I'm excited.
That's a cool story of how like she got that job. Is Alex Kurtzman was just watching the like all the different takes that they shot on the crossover episode of Strange New Worlds, and just like all the different lines that Tawny Newsome was ad-libbing, and he was like,
Oh
Jesus
wow.
Christ, like I should hire her as a writer. She's got
She
all
was
this great
auditioning.
material. Yeah.
She was auditioning without knowing it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, she's strongly trained in improv comedy, so it is not a far-fetched thing for her to be able to improv lines. And Jack Quaid has improv training as well. So if anybody's going to do additional takes and riffs, it's going to be the two of them.
Yeah, that's very cool.
The Academy show it's going to be, they haven't confirmed this, but we're all assuming it's going to be like in the Discovery future in the 32nd century. So kind of like a continuation there, which I guess is like
Right.
the time period that like I'm least interested in. But they've talked about like an Academy show for all of my life. So they've always talked about like maybe we'll do like a Star Trek Academy. Who knows? We could do that show. We could have Star Trek 90210. It's always been kind of like this rumored thing, this proposed thing. I feel like Prodigy scratched that itch, but you know they've decided to take Prodigy in like a different direction. Then it's not going to be kids at school. It's so I guess we're going to get like a live action version of that instead. But I don't know. I think there's potential. Like
I've
you could
given
have
my pitch for this before, so I'm not going to do the full pitch. But I think like 90210 is like the kind of worst version of it people can imagine, where it's just kind of a soap opera. But I definitely think that it needn't be that. There's lots of possibilities.
I agree. And frankly, if they do set it in the Discovery future, give me back my Tilly. Just please give me back my Tilly.
I mean,
I
I
want to
think
see
that's
Tilly
got to be
teaching
part
classes.
of it. Yeah, I would love that. I think that what made that exciting is this is something I talked about before when we mentioned this, Fatheree, would be the idea of Starfleet Academy being kind of a vibrant thing, as Starfleet itself is essentially jump started in that era. So it'd be an
Mhm.
exciting time to go and join Starfleet Academy and be a part of this, new wave, almost the energy of the Peace Corps in the 60s or something like that. And you could have guest teachers and professors from other alien species and civilizations. You could have other people who'd been in Discovery could show up potentially to lecture. You could even have like a holographic representation of other Trek characters from the past and potentially bring some other actors in there.
Yeah, there's an end universe precedent for, speaking of Enterprise, of like, hey, let's just get in the holodeck and go relive some historical event. So,
But also, one of my favorite, a great TNG episode is the what's the first? Oh my gosh, the Wesley's dismissal from the academy. What was that? The first principal, the first,
the first
what's that?
duty.
The first duty. That's it. And like I feel like you could pull in dramatic stuff like that too. Really like kids taking risks. Even that's excluding any relationship stuff, which I think would also be potentially interesting, and Trek could do some stuff with that too. So I'm excited at the possibility. I know ways that school drama type stuff could also become kind of familiar and soap opera-y, and I hope it doesn't do that.
I don't think it will. I don't think it will because I trust Tawny. So
Well,
There we go.
so yeah, so some excitement for the Academy show. So there were some good announcements in the year after all. I think it was also a good year for Star Trek outside of the shows with the kind of like the tie-in material and stuff. I don't typically read the Star Trek novels. I used to keep up with some here and there, but it's just, I'm kind of a slow reader anyways. It takes me forever to finish books, and it's I read so many comics, and I try to read like nonfiction. When I think the stuff that I think is important in the world, I try to read up on that sometimes. So I don't always have time for the Star Trek novels, but I did read quite a few Star Trek comics, and I played some Star Trek video games this year. Dave, I don't think you played any of the games. Brandi, did you play do you play any games? Resurgence was the big one for me this year.
yep, I did play Resurgence, and I want to play it again and make different choices and see what
Yes.
happens, just for kicks and giggles. And I did play I did play the Prodigy game as well, which it's definitely aimed toward a younger audience.
Right. Supernova.
Supernova, yes, but it's also still fun for me. It's basically a lot of working out puzzles.
I felt like just at a glance, I didn't play it, but it kind of looked like when I've occasionally played the Lego games,
Mhm.
and I don't know if the stakes felt like they were higher, like if
It's
the
a good
difficulty was
comparison.
higher. But
It's a
those
good
Lego games
comparison.
are great for two players. You wander around through cool landscapes. You don't necessarily. It's not like trying to recreate the exact feel, but they like have a kind of a high fun factor, and you solve light puzzles and things.
Yeah, well, and I had to fight a spider dreadnought. It was not fun. It was scary.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good.
Dave
That's
and I are
that's
supposed to play that. It was requested that we stream a game, but it doesn't support like two-player co-op. So
No,
it's
it
or
should.
no,
It
it
was.
does, but like not split screen. You have to be at like on the same TV to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But maybe someday.
Yeah, maybe someday. Who's the big bad in that? Did you or
Dreadnought is
Dreadnought?
like the
Dreadnought.
And
final
is he the
boss.
final boss? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything.
okay,
So,
okay, fair enough, fair enough.
but yeah,
But
it's
there's
fun.
I streamed the gameplay of the entire game to help like keep Prodigy trending. I don't know if it did any good, but I mean apparently it did. We got the show
It
on
did. Good
Netflix,
job,
so
Father. You
yeah.
saved it.
Y'all
We
are
did that!
welcome.
Woo!
But if people
Ship
go
out of danger.
onto the Tex-Trek YouTube channel, or you might be listening to me there now, but you can find that, and I streamed all of my Star Trek Resurgence gameplay as well, which is something like we hadn't done that before. We hadn't like streamed gameplay, so that's a thing that's I guess that's a thing that I might do more of next year. I'm dabbling with streaming video games, we'll say, but
I think people kind of know that. What was the Star Trek one that you just said, Father? The non-prodigy one?
Resurgence.
Resurgence.
Resurgence, yeah. So y'all both played that. I know it broadly uses aspects of the Telltale game, familiar Telltale games thing with lots of
Mhm.
conversation trees and choices and difficult moral decisions. Would y'all both say, "Hey, Dave, you should play that"? Should I play that?
I think it was really interesting. I would say play it.
And Fathery?
Yeah. Yeah, and we did that review where
Mm-hmm.
you debriefed me on the game,
Mm-hmm.
and people can go like check that out if they want like more like in-depth thoughts on
Yeah,
it.
as
But
you're
yeah, I
describing
do
it, I was
recommend
like,
it.
I might can find some time in January to play that.
I'm kind of
That
surprised you
sounds
didn't.
good.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't because
I was
you were like
excited to
really
at the
enthused at
time.
the time.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was like, Father's played it. It's already old hat now.
Um, Rachel in the live audience is talking about Star Trek Online, and I know that she's been playing some of that, and I've played some on the PlayStation. I can get back on Star Trek Online maybe. There's that Infinite game that came out this year, but I don't know anyone who played it. The real time strategy PC game, I think it was called Star Trek Infinite. It just came out like a few weeks ago. I'm already like I don't even remember what it was called, but
That's because Star Trek and military strategy is slightly weird. Even though I know it's also had a history of games that do that.
yeah, it actually seems like it would make a lot of sense, and you can like play as like these other empires, like the Klingons and Romulans and Dominion, and it. But
Was
I
that a
don't know. No
a
one.
full game, or an app game, or what?
No, it was like a full-on PC strategy game, like a full $50-$60 game.
What's it called, Fatheree?
Star Trek Infinite, I think.
Okay, just
But
curious.
this is honestly, this is the most I've ever heard anyone talk about it ever since it was announced.
Yeah,
Just
I'm.
two dudes trying to remember the name of it.
I'm looking it up at Metacritic that aggregates reviews, and it's I don't know. It's not coming up. It's like someone's Section 31 has erased it, um, or there's not enough reviews to post about it. Maybe that doesn't bode well. Anyway, I'll look into this so we can talk about it on some subsequent episode. And yeah,
I doubt we'll ever cover that game because there
probably
seems to be
not.
no interest in it. But uh, what I think that there's a lot of interest in like the Star Trek comics, or at least like I'm trying to get people to pay more attention to them because I think they've done like some really cool stuff this year. With we talked to Heather Antos, the editor at IDW, so we have an interview that people can go check out from a few months ago. But there's a ongoing Star Trek book, and there's well, I guess there's two because they have like the main Star Trek book and then the spin-off with the Defiant, where you have
Yep.
the cool like Worf stuff, and then you have like Cisco back from the wormhole doing shit in the main ongoing books. So
And Heather Antos rightly took pride in the fact that under her reign,
editorialship.
stewardship. Let's say stewardship. Reign sounds and regime sounds a little mirror universe. She has been able to. The first time a Trek book or a Trek story ever got an Eisner Award, which for those who don't know the comic biz, that's like our Academy Awards. And that's pretty notable. So yay
Yeah,
her,
not
and
not common for licensed comics. Very
for
very
sure,
rare.
for sure.
Very rare.
But Brandi, you've been keeping up on them a bit and been having a good time in those worlds. They don't seem
Mhm.
too off canon or off model or anything.
No, they really don't. I think that the comics, because of course they're not really they can't be canon, but
Right.
and I understand that, and that's fine actually. But I really think that they keep true to the characters, especially from the I don't want to say old era, the pre-2000 era,
Yeah.
pre-2010 era of Star Trek. There we go.
Legacy Star Trek is the term
Legacy
that
Star Trek. There we
is the
go.
Yeah.
official term that we're supposed to use.
I think that they're really doing a great job of inhabiting those characters in the comics and creating interesting stories for them. And I I go through them so fast because I'm a really fast reader, and so
Mm-hmm.
I have to and so I, like, read all the dialogue, but then I have to go back and I have to look at the pictures
Yeah,
and
yeah.
concentrate on those as well. I can't do both at the same time. So
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, just to it's its own sort of language of reading and gaining information, and yeah, everybody kind of has their different approach. I was looking at it was just flipping through a recent issue, and it had Harry Kim on the cover, looking kind of like a badass. He had like some cool jacket on. I didn't get a chance to read the story yet, but it's like in the middle of I think the main Star Trek book that they have now that has is it the Defiant at the heart of that
No, that's the spin-off
that's
is
the
the
spin-off,
Defiant
yeah.
one.
spinoff? Okay,
Mhm.
They're both using a lot of legacy characters,
characters.
and
Yep.
if people liked Picard season 3, if you liked the way like that show kind of like used the universe, it's very much in the same spirit as that, and some of it even kind of like ties in. Like they had Rose show up in the comic the same week that she showed up on Picard. And the comic takes place decades before the show, so it all kind of lines up, but just tonally it just felt right for her. And story wise, it's like her explanation of like, oh yeah, well, I was in prison, but then like they let me out to do like all this work and stuff. It's like we see that in the comic, the thing that they're talking about on the show, and it was all landing at the same week. So it was just seeing that
pretty
level
cool.
of synchronicity in the franchise. The other Star franchise gets to enjoy that sometimes, but I feel like we don't get that very often. And in Trek, everything's like so chaotic, and licenses change hands all the time. Hell, we can't even keep all of our shows on the same streaming platform, like the in-house streaming platform that Paramount Global owns. It's supposed to be like their big flagship. Here's our like entertainment model, like how we're gonna like generate money for our stockholders with our all this content that we own in our library. But whatever, they can't do that, but they were somehow able to like get like the comic and show to work. So I'll take the wins when I can. That was cool to see that.
I feel like streaming services had no idea how to run a streaming service. And I think that that's been the case with every streaming service. It's like, oh, yes, we've got all these new subscribers, but eventually those subscribers are going to level off. There are only so many people in the world, and there's only so much money people can fork out for streaming services. And so they hit this wall this year
Mhm.
and are finally realizing, oh, we have no idea what we're doing.
I mean, I guess we are relatively early on in that technology. I mean, it's been around a bit. It's not
Well,
new,
it
but
was all just a big effort to get around advertisers. Like, oh, we can give content to the consumer, and the consumer will just pay us a subscription instead of advertisers paying us to advertise. And then it's like, oh, this model actually like doesn't work and it's not sustainable. And I'm not
That's
saying like
because
we have to
yeah.
have like advertisements in order to live, but I'm just saying like that if
But
you live in
that's
like a
the thing.
capitalist system, that's where like a lot of people with capital, they're gonna like invest in themselves and invest in like their advertising. And I wish that they would just, divert funds to making like quality entertainment, because that's just like a worthy goal to, contribute to society. Like here's some good Star Trek for people, for civilization to enjoy, but unfortunately we
Yeah.
don't have that. Someone's gonna have to pay for it. And if we're not paying like, $18 a month on every subscription service we have, then we're either become a pirate or sit through some commercials.
Well, see, and that's the thing. It's like you pay a subscription for, like you have your regular subscription, which is where you have commercials, and then you have your premium subscription, which has no commercials. But why are you paying a subscription fee and still sitting through commercials?
That's the worst. That's like the most unexcusable of any of them.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
that does drive me nuts. And I grew up with commercials. I can tolerate them. I would gather a lot more than sort of probably Gen Z or millennials can. But if I've paid for it, like get that shit out.
Mhm. Exactly. It's ridiculous to have a paid subscription that has commercials in it. Stop doing that. Just stop it.
And I guess at some point we're gonna be talking about Star Trek, about like whatever one of these like mega companies ends up like buying Paramount Global, when it like I don't know like how long Paramount Plus is gonna last, but eventually there's gonna be like some consolidation with like these big streaming platforms. There's right now
Which
Paramount
is
Plus
making
is,
everything worse.
yes, yeah, it's not gonna be good news, but I think that it will be like, within the next few years, we'll be talking about like either Amazon or Apple or Netflix, or someone will buy like Paramount Global and will own Star Trek and will own Paramount Plus and Showtime and all of that stuff, and Nickelodeon and Ninja Turtles and BET and whatever's like under the umbrella. If it doesn't get like broken up, but I don't. The whole like Sherry Redstone's whole thing was like, let's put it all together in one like big ass package and make it where if someone tries to buy it, they have to buy all of it. So
Yeah,
that's kind of, I don't know if this is like boring to people, but they're kind of in like a weird situation now where like they're like too big. Like the only people who could buy them are like people who would like, oh, if Disney or Discovery does it, like they would probably become like a monopoly and get like stopped by the courts. So there's like they're
Right.
too big for like other medium-sized companies to buy, but they're too big for like the big people to buy also.
Yeah, they painted themselves into a corner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What were you saying, Brandy?
Oh, I was just going to say there was a comment saying you pay for cable and still have commercials. Yes, but you usually also have a DVR and can record things and watch them later and fast forward the commercials. When you have a streaming subscription with commercials, you cannot fast forward the commercials.
Yeah. I mean, I don't pay for cable either, so
I
I
I
don't want to.
I
I don't want
cut
to
the
do
cord
that.
a while ago. I got so sick of cable hiking up and hiking up and hiking up the prices, and yet not giving me all of the channels. It's like, why am I paying so much money? It had gotten to the point where internet and phone, which we also ditched as well because we have cell phones, and cable was over $250 a month.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think people don't
that's
understand how
nuts.
expensive cable is. Like people who like cut the cord like 12 years ago, and they're like, "I'm paying for all these streaming services. It would just be cheaper to get cable." Like, no, it wouldn't be. Cable is like super pricey. But
Yeah.
Hey, Father, since it came up earlier, I was gonna say I didn't really. I think I watched all of the very short treks that came out this year, which was what part of the 50th anniversary of
part of the
TAS,
of
the animated
TAS.
series.
But I
And
don't.
I will
I
say,
keep
like,
forgetting about those.
yeah, just to throw it in there real quick. I don't have a lot to say on them, but I more or less liked the experience, even though sometimes it was kind of trashy. Some of them were kind of trashy. They definitely
Uh,
all had what I think of as the Cartoon Network sort of sense, Adult Swim sense of humor. Um, but and just in a little 3-5 minute parcel or whatever, I can enjoy a little bit of, I don't know, kind of messed up jokes.
I think I watched all of them one time and then was confused about like why are people still talking about this like a week later, like this weird little internet promo. But
I mean, wasn't one of the ones, what a guy directed one or maybe two of them, was the guy who did Too Many Cooks, the
yeah, he was
viral
in charge.
phenomenon.
Casper Kelly. He was in charge of the whole project.
Yeah. And that guy made a viral video 10, 12, whatever years ago it was, and people talked about that quite a bit. And this is, there's some of that same absurdist and sometimes messed up sense of humor applied to Trek, which we're not super used to, although Lower Decks dabbles in it.
They dabble in it, but some of the stuff in the very short treks was downright disgusting,
Yeah,
like
sure.
gross. And I'm not saying like, oh, that's disgusting. I'm saying like I was grossed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had like the transporter accident, dude, where you got like half beamed and or like the booger eater people. That was that's
Mm.
why I only watched it one time, maybe.
But that was kind of, see, I think that was kind of funny. Wasn't that the one where Riker was more and more trying to, basically, he was like, we don't want these people to bring them into the Federation. And so
Yeah,
they kept on upping the ante increasingly more ridiculously of how gross these aliens were,
yeah.
until he basically just nopes on out of there. I mean, I think that's a pretty funny gag. I'm not going to defend booger eating joke specifically. It is gross. But, you know, I think probably Trek's 50th anniversary of their animated component probably deserves something better than some shorts that at times certainly might have felt like it was making fun of it and not laughing with, but laughing at. But Prodigy and Lower Decks have, I guess, been their own gift to Trek animation. It is kind of too bad that they weren't a little more ambitious. That they sort of made stuff, I guess, what feels like it's kind of for a non-Trek audience, for what should have been more for a Trek audience.
Yeah, it was like weird little absurdist commercials that you would, I don't know, be like, here's like a weird, memorable like thing that like marketing people like, if you watch like commercials during like these NFL games, I guess I see like more commercials than I typically see, but it's like, yeah, they try to do like all like these weird, just like to do something like really weird and bizarre, just so it sticks in your memory, so you can like remember like this product or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
But yeah, I mean, I
It's
don't
like
have.
the Burger King, super
Yeah,
creepy,
yeah, yeah,
very
yeah.
but
That
very
type of thinking.
effective as a branding tool. Um, yeah, I don't have any. Like, I don't like. I think I've said all I have on it. It wasn't necessarily worth much discussion. I don't know if y'all have
Yeah,
anything
well,
else.
I feel like, I mean, they build this as a celebration sort of thing for the 50th anniversary, and
Right.
it didn't feel like that at
It felt more like
all.
Family Guy came in and took over
But
for,
I don't
a few
Thank you, yes,
shorts.
I don't
that's
know. I
actually
just
yeah.
I guess I was never really expecting it. There's like we did like these promos. It's like, okay, I don't really count that as like a celebration. Like I never
Mhm.
expected it to be anything worth
Right. If they just said we're
paying
doing some
attention
fun
to.
little crazy promos, I think that probably would
I
have gone
wouldn't have said
better.
anything. I wouldn't have even
Yeah.
announced. I would have just done it. I would have just like spat that out and been like, here, like it or don't like it. It's not a big event, so
Yeah.
there is no reason for like trekcore.com or trekmovie.com to put out like an article on this. It's just a little thing on the Star Trek website, and people can watch it or not watch it. And I don't know. I wouldn't have, I guess, promoted the promos. Seemed weird to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I saw somebody in the comments mention the fashion partnership with Kid Cudi,
Yeah.
and
There's some expensive jackets that none of us could buy.
yeah, they looked pretty cool from what I gathered at, but yeah, I was not about to like run out and pick them up. I don't know. Has this been a success at all? Do we? Is there a way to gauge that?
um, I'm gonna assume not, as the answer to both your questions. If it was a success, or is there a way to gauge it? I'm gonna assume not. Um,
Yeah, maybe not. Trek and fashion is kind of a weird thing. Although fashion is, costuming and fashion figures into every single Trek. It's just that it's a lot of times people are just wearing uniforms.
Yeah, well, you know what, honestly, I could open a whole new market for them as far as, uniforms. Make them for larger women. It's not
In
that hard.
general, I think Trek could probably use a little bit of that. Um,
They could use a lot of that. There's a
the
lot of
hmm.
women who can't cosplay because they can't afford to make their own uniform or pay someone to make it for them. Because you cannot find anything for a woman that is not basically skin and bones.
Right. They did have a history on that show of a lot of skin tight uniforms and stuff. I feel for those actors, the especially like I guess the TOS and TNG people.
You know what? As
Uh,
as someone who likes to wear like jackets and thing like uniforms that like wrap up or zip up and stuff, it's like, hey, Star Trek Picard season 3, when you have to like design uniforms to make like your pudgy old actors look better in their old age. That's like that helps, pudgier cosplayers. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Well, see,
But
that's the thing. I have seen larger sizes costumes, uniform costumes for men, but never
mm,
for women. Ever.
little old school sexism rearing
yeah,
its
well,
head.
that's
Sounds like
Mhm.
unfortunate.
just
I would say I would complain to Paramount, but they don't even like
They
make
don't
any
care.
like they don't even make any of this stuff. They're not even making
No.
like official uniforms. So
No.
it's like, all the cosplays people are just buying from like the
third
the
party
the
and Etsy
illegal
people.
like overseas cosplay. But it's like, I guess we have to complain to those people. But,
Yeah. Hey, sweatshops.
yeah. Uh but I don't have anything else on Trek in 2023. Just remind people that in addition to Heather Antos and Ira Stephen Bear, we talked to Mike McMahon a few weeks ago about season 4 of Lower Decks. So there had some interviews. If people missed those, it's a good time to go and check them out. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We have I have a lot of work to do, and it's real scary and overwhelming. But I think we're gonna pull it off, and we have a big surprise. I think y'all will like it. Tex-Trek Trekmas special, holiday special, Christmas special. What's the Seinfeld holiday? The Festivus.
Festivus.
yeah, that can be that too. Any winter holiday celebration that you want to assign to it, but yeah,
Yep.
that's hopefully that'll be done December 15th. That'll be out, and it'll be something that you can listen to or watch. But that will be on its way in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I believe people will like it and or get a laugh out of it, and or
Well, we can't talk about it, so don't say what it is.
yeah, I won't say what it is. I won't say what it is.
And yeah, people make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss that. And a big thank you to the Tex-Trek Patreon supporters. That's Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Daw, Geek Filter, Earl Grey Trekkie, Quark Spar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, and our anonymous supporters. Thank each and every one of you so much. Again, the Patreon watch party will be December 16th. And everyone should join the Tex-Trek Discord server because we're going to have some various watch party activity things going on this month.
You know, Fatheree, worth mentioning is that was it Aaron Waltke who sat in with us
Not this year.
was that not
but
this year?
He did. There was no Prodigy this year, but he was.
I thought he still
last
sat
year.
in when we watched an episode, but I could have sworn.
Oh no! Yeah, he came to one of our Patreon watch parties. Yeah,
That's
so
right.
so
That's a Patreon exclusive,
Yeah, so
and he like straight watched it with us, did
Yeah.
commentary, asked.
just talk. Yeah,
He gave us like the insider knowledge that you are not going to get elsewhere.
Yeah, if so, you pay that little $2 a month. It gets you into these watch parties, and you never know who will show up. You might be watching an episode of Star Trek with us, and then the writer of that episode might just appear
It's a
and
thing.
talk
He
about
was-
it with you as we're watching it. So, yeah, good point. I don't know if we're going to be live again. We might be if there's some. I don't know. Make sure you're
Something
subscribed on
pops up.
YouTube because who knows? We might do like a live stream. I might just be like, hey, I miss y'all. I want to stream just to say Merry Christmas or Happy New Year or something. But hit that subscribe if this is the last time that we're live until 2024, though. I hope everyone does have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and a very Trek-tastic New Year.
Absolutely.
Brandi, do you want to remind people where they can find you and some of like the other content that you're doing right now?
No.
Sick. I love it.
I don't want anyone to find me ever again. I'm an introvert and I like being alone. I'm not doing a whole lot as far as content right now because I'm tired and old. But so basically, sometime in the new year, I'll start things again. But if you want to follow me on social media, I'm not going to talk about Twitter because it's just a big fat dumpster fire. But you can find me on Mastodon at Brandywine at ravenation.club. You can find me on Blue Sky at brandywine.bsky.social. And I'm on Instagram as just myself, which is Brandi Jackala. And just thanks for letting me join today, and also for letting me have my little rants. So it's kind of a thing I do.
Of
Ranting.
course. Thank you for taking time to stop by and chat with us, and hopefully we can have you back on board the Starship Texas again in the new year in 2024. Maybe we can make it happen more regularly.
Yeah, beam me up.
Hell yeah.
Well, and until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
And live lugs and proper.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fatheree on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.